This happened last night, and we immediately covered it, obviously, as it happened last night. Mehdi Hasan went on a CNN panel, and the guy breached Reddit containment. The guy who was in front of him basically was thinking that he could get away with saying some extremely Reddit type. This guy's a former Proud Boy orbiter who used to go on Gavin McInnes' show regularly under his real name. Someone told me that that guy also wrote for Richard Spencer or something. But point is, Mehdi Hasan is on a panel talking about racism from the Trump Nazi rally. And look at how the conversation falls apart so quickly.
If you don't want to be called Nazis, stop doing it.
You're called an anti-Semite more than anyone else's table.
Yeah.
And people will sit there and, no, by me. I never called you an anti-Semite. Okay. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying
I'm a supporter of the Palestinians, so I'm used to it.
Yeah, I hope your beeper doesn't go off.
I'm a supporter of the Palestinians, so I'm used to it. Well, I hope your beeper doesn't go off. Now, that is probably one of the most commonplace things I've heard since Israel did its terror attack on Lebanese soil that many people celebrated, like, openly. It was very, very, very frustrating. Now, there's something going on here that you have to understand. He is like a Republican guy doing this, so now liberals will say, wow, like, this is unacceptable. The problem is liberals have also kind of played a role in normalizing this kind of sentiment. Like, it's not that shocking when you have Biden's State Department anti-Semitism czar Deborah Lipstadt saying this exact same fucking joke, basically, on a panel.
After October 7th, there was a feeling around the world that Israel is weaker.
You want a beeper?
This is something that people can, like, very openly be super callous about. And there are many other instances where directly on CNN, people have done this sort of shit. And you know, I think it's like Reddit and Twitter breaching containment for sure. But beyond that, it's good that there is, like, at least some level of pushback. Is that a slur? I've never heard that word before. What do you mean, beeper? No, it's not a slur. It's just basically saying, like, you will be extrajudiciously assassinated by the state of Israel. When you make that joke, that's what you're saying. When you say, like, oh, wow, your beeper is running, which many people did about fucking Rashida Tlaib as well. And every single person that's, like, openly pro-Palestinian, especially if they're of a Muslim background or if they're from the area, if they're Arab, like, people just go crazy with that. Every single Arab and Muslim content creator that is pro-Palestine has received those jokes a million times over. I don't know how many people we have banned in the aftermath of Israel exploding 2,000 pagers, killing a bunch of, like, first responders and many others. It's so incredibly commonplace. It's just, that's it. And that's the reason why this person is, like, very cool, calm, and collected, and dare I say shocked when people call him out. When he realizes, oh, this is hostile.
Look, did you just say I should die?
You should not.
No,
Did you just say I should be killed?
No, I did not say that. No, I did not.
Yeah, look at his face. Like, look at his face when he realizes, like, the moment that he realizes, like, like, he's having a little panic moment. I'm glad that there's a little bit of pushback at this point, but I think that, you know, part of the reason why they're doing it is because it's gotten so completely out of hand. The other clip of this joke got ha-has. This time, not so much. But then on Twitter, he's trying to play this off as a joke, of course. Yeah, I don't think it's just Twitter, Reddit and Twitter. Rich Lowry, him, Tony Hinchcliffe, and everyone that's part of the MAGA movement all say this stuff behind closed doors and are waiting for Trump to get elected for this kind of talk to become normalized. This kind of talk is normalized especially against Arabs and Muslims. What do you mean? I can give you a million examples of this shit. Former TV booker explains that this is a major issue for network TV. CNN just removed a far-right panelist for a racist remark as progressive commentator Mehdi Hasan. This was the right decision, but as a former TV booker, what happened is a part of a much bigger problem. Before going independent, I used to be a producer on The Hill. Like all mainstream media shows, we were constantly trying to have a balanced panel discussion, but we always had a problem. It was very difficult to find Republicans who weren't crazy. Frequently, my colleagues would book right-wing commentators, and as someone who'd come out of conservative media, I often had to review them before they were put on air. More than a few times, people who were alt-right activists were booked before I removed them. Other times, we couldn't find anyone who was actually qualified to talk about the news of the day in a non-frothing manner. We had people offered who had made racist remarks, people who had stalked women, etc. The Republican media, meanwhile, made zero attempts at balance. We also had several commentators who expressed Christian supremacist ideas, which meant, of course, that they couldn't possibly add anything useful to Israel or Islam. This is what happened to the very long-suffering Abby Phillips tonight. The biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action in media are Republican commentators. That's true. The MSM are desperate to find anyone who can engage in civil dialogue without filibustering or collapsing into bigoted rants. This is why you often see the same Republicans everywhere. Republican elites have a huge quality problem on their side, but they don't care to do anything about it. That's because they realize that engaging in informational hygiene would shrink their very unstable coalition. They've chosen extremism and never get called on it. And it's true. And especially when it comes to like Israel stuff, especially when it comes to Israel-Palestine related shit, liberals say the same exact unhinged things as well. Look at Bill Maher. Bill Maher says stuff like this on a regular fucking basis. Congresspersons make these same jokes. Like, look at this. This is a representative.
Say self-defense what Israel did with the pagers and how the walkie-talkie?
Now that's a Republican, okay? That's a Republican.
8-year-old and 11-year-old.
Do you have your pagers on you? John Fetterman, on the other hand, is also defending the pager attacks in like non-hostile media environments. Just so you understand, like the very same people that are fucking outraged right now because a Republican said that joke directly to fucking Mehdi Hassan's face are the same people that made those exact same jokes. The most revealing part of this train wreck was that this twerp's sniveling cowardice. He makes 2 rapid-fire, nasty, racist, disingenuous remarks, and then when he gets called on, he goes for, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I misunderstood you." Was totally clear who this guy was from his Twitter feed. Is it possible that just bought new Tesla pagers? I mean, I guess that's more of a joke on Tesla than it is about the pager attacks killing civilians, to be like unimaginably and endlessly charitable to that specific person. It's not the exact same kind of joke, in my opinion. But yeah, you guys understand that like there are permission structures for genuinely Islamophobic sentiment being expressed here. And that is part of the reason why the fucking Richard Spencer writer guy thought that he would be able to spew that nonsense comfortably on CNN, especially when CNN has done this. CNN pundit calls Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar a public relations agent for Hamas with no pushback.
No, she's a Democrat. They're going to vote for Biden. I'm not surprised about that. I am surprised that in the year of our Lord, 2024, there is a public relations agent for Hamas sitting in the United States Congress.
He didn't get fired. He's still one of the most prominent Republican voices on CNN. So understand that. It's just like the most normalized form of bigotry, where like in the United States of America, a white supremacist country built on those fundamentals, built on chattel slavery, indigenous ethnic cleansing, Americans have improved their ways in which they do anti-black white supremacist sentiment. So much so that even if someone is like a die-in-the-wool racist, there are certain things that they hear where they're like, "Oh, that's a bridge too far for me. Wouldn't go that far." You know, you could have a guy with like the identical politics of a fucking Klansman who will still turn around and go, "Oh, saying the N-word with a hard R, well, that's a little bit much." Whereas Islamophobia and its social conditioning and it's like the propagandizing of Islamophobia is relatively new. It's a relatively new target. It's relatively new in comparison to like the inception of the American state revolving around anti-black white supremacy. So there is no masquerading. That type of shit is not only pervasive, but totally accepted. This is a fact all over the Western world. Yes. Will this sort of sentiment be normalized even if Kamala wins? Yes. It already is. Kamala Harris is currently the vice president. Joe Biden is currently the president. It's currently pervasive. It's currently accepted. Anyway, the mainstream media needs to stop platforming dishonest and bigoted Republicans. America needs to hear what the far right thinks, but we don't need to hear their bigotry and trolling. Reporters can present these views and their significance. We don't need these bigots. Until CNN and other outlets return to the regular standards, they're going to keep having their right-wing commentators engage in self-destructive acts. Remember the imploding of Jeffrey Lord, Ed Martin, and Corey Lewandowski? These people keep horribly tarnishing the CNN brand. The hard reality is that Republicans are so far from center that they cannot engage in civil debate. The viewers would be better served by ending the right-wing food fights. We also don't need fictitious Republicans who lie constantly either, like Ronna McDaniel. CNN's Republican chief executives clearly are behind these recent Republican affirmative action hires. They suppose that having more right-wing droogs on air will get Republicans to flip away from Fox, but this will never work. For every Fox bot tuning in, they lose 2 disgusted viewers. And just closing on the root of Ryan Jerdowski, he is a full-on racist and radical Christian supremacist who has written for racist activist Richard Spencer, a fucking Nazi. Ben Shapiro defended him on X. Imagine if someone had made a joke about October 7th directed at him on his platform. The hypocrisy is crazy. Yes, like that person would be fucking locked up. It's just so fucking annoying. The only reason he faced backlash is because Hasan pushed back immediately too. Every other time it's been brushed over because nobody cared. Guys, Jake Tapper and Dana Fash are CNN's two top billed commentators, okay? They literally engaged in a similar fucking conquest coming from the same exact Islamophobic place against Rashida Tlaib. They did that against Rashida Tlaib. Now, of course, like the views of some of the top billed commentators do not reflect the views of the entire institution. I'm not saying that every single person has those exact same opinions, but understand why people like this think it is perfectly normal to say shit like this on CNN. I hope that people understand what they are doing. There are plenty of open-minded individuals who value themselves as progressive, who do repeat some of these fucking talking points, and I urge them to reconsider, okay? I urge them to, re-examine the way that they speak about Palestinians, about Arabs, about Muslims. This is a dangerous prospect. I know that there will be some people, at least, that are coming into this community that will do that, I hope.